Snow White is a complete package.
The big eyes, the stand-up collar against the bob of the hair.
And like in characters like Snow White and the Queen, I just fell in love with.
There's just something so believable and so aspirational about the design.
Ten years earlier, all they were doing were nickels and quarters rubber hose animation for Mickey Mouse.
The Roaring Twenties was the bee-stung small lips, the big eyes, the kind of the bobbed hair. And you see that translated into Snow White.
This one actually almost looks like a caricature of Betty Davis. She had extremely large eyes.
That's right.
That's cool.
Who was extremely popular at that time.
This one is probably Grim Natwick's design, I believe.
He designed Betty Boop.
We shall have fun when we're riding on the merry-go-round.
So there's so much Betty Boop in that drawing to me. It's really interesting what she could have been.
You can't avoid the time period you are living in. It's going to influence the design.
And also, there's a connection to an audience, that it's aspirational.
I think it's an amazing thing looking at some of these sketches. Tengrin, I just love his work. Al Herder's drawings and sketches of the dwarfs. And even though this early Snow White iteration isn't quite the character, you can start to see some of the mobility of the character begin to happen.
Also, action reference started happening on Snow White. He feels so fleshed out with the dwarfs as well.
They just pushed anatomy and believability to a point that you've never really seen before.
With a smile and a song.
I'm a huge Freddie Moore fan, and that iconography started with him and really started with this film to some degree.
Absolutely. He set the Disney aesthetic that we know as true appeal.
But what's interesting, Walt cast his animators just like you would cast actors in a play or a movie to their strengths. Freddie's sensibilities were far better used on Dopey.
You mean he can't talk?
He don't know. He never tried.
That's too bad.
The Prince.
His role in the film was cut down, I think, because of the limitations.
Hello.
Oh.
Did I frighten
This is a story about this young girl. The prince, was the reward at the end, I guess.
One thing about Snow White is it's sort of the beginning of a range of caricature.
Where do the really cartoony, broad characters meet the more naturalistic characters? They can't be too far apart. I mean, if you look at Snow White, just the scale of her head next to Dopey's, yet she kisses his head. And in real life, that would be a little bit alarming, but the proportions work just perfectly together. It's just balanced out.
I feel like in the land of CG, you may look at that and not believe it and maybe take it out.
That's right. Everything has to be more realized: skin texture, hair volume.
Look at that high definition, your face. It's amazing.
There's a level of complexity that we have to deal with today.
People have asked, too, about leading ladies of today versus Snow White. What are the differences? And I think the audiences have gotten more sophisticated, and the storytelling is getting more sophisticated. Snow White is a very kind of reactive character. It's like, it was perfect for the story at this time, and she kind of set that role model for every girl since then. I know I had the opportunity to do a couple of our leading ladies back to back to back, and it was just like, oh my gosh, each one has to be unique, and that's always a challenge.
Does the personality reflect the colors as well?
Try a brunette, try a redhead, try a blonde.
The costume, the voice, the design, when all these things mesh in the right way, that's when elevated design really happens, and you do get something that will stand the test of time.
It's aspirational.
When you see a Disney character, it's about wish fulfillment. And not just materialistic things, we're talking about those things that are more intangible, about human connection. That, I think, is the pull of these films, that we get that wish. And I think that's why we all came here. Really, is to be a part of that. I mean, that is the dream that Walt sort of set up, and it is just everlasting.